I've had chronic Lyme disease since I was 7 years old, and now I'm 28 years old, so I have had it for 21 years. And it went undiagnosed for 17 of those years. I didn't get a diagnosis until I was 24, even though I was really, really sick for a very long time.
How many tick bites would you say?
So I've probably had about at least 100 tick bites, and that's not just ticks I've found on me, those are the ones that have been embedded. Basically, Lyme disease affects your nervous system, your cardiovascular system, including your heart, your digestive system, your joints. So one of the biggest symptoms is fatigue and being really tired. And then also a weird thing with that, though, is you can also get really bad insomnia, which I did for many years, and you form strange sleeping patterns. For instance, you will not be able to go to bed till 6 a.m. in the morning, and then you'll try to sleep till 4 p.m. There's a lot of neuropsychiatric problems that come with it. So basically any psychiatric disease can be caused by Lyme disease. Every single one, from schizophrenia to generalized anxiety disorder to bipolar, because all those come from brain inflammation. And what Lyme does is it causes inflammation throughout your entire body, specifically in your brain and your nervous system. In junior high, I started getting severe migraines where I would be in so much pain that I would be hysterically crying for 6 hours and vomiting nonstop for 6 hours. And the worst symptom for me was probably the brain fog, which was actually me going into early dementia. At the age of 24, I was losing my memory. I was mixing up my words when I was speaking. And it felt like I was just constantly in this like fog or soup, and thinking was really, really, really difficult for me to do. I went to probably 20 doctors before I ever found a doctor that would even diagnose me with Lyme, let alone treat me. The tests were inaccurate because Lyme disease, to me, is any disease that you can get from a tick, of which there's at least about 20, and they're viral, fungal, bacterial. So it's not just Borrelia burgdorferi, which is the standard medical community's definition of Lyme disease right now. So the diseases that I've tested positive for, the Lyme or tick diseases, are Borrelia, Bartonella, Babesia, which is also known as American malaria, tularemia, mycoplasma. I've had Rocky Mountain spotted fever. I have a chronic staph infection, chronic candida infection, HHV6, mono. And I think that's all of them. There's so many, it's really hard to remember. Because the human biome at all time is full of, viruses, funguses, bacteria. So it's not like, your body's all clean and that you just, these things kind of pop out of nowhere and then you get them. It's that we have, thousands and thousands of germs in our bodies all the time. And it's this constant fight between your immune system and all those pathogens. And then when you start getting a really high infectious burden, that's when your immune system starts losing, because your immune system can only handle so much of it. And sometimes what crashes your immune system is environmental toxins, if you get a bunch of infections all at one time, so if you get a tick bite. So yeah. So the worst part for me, even though treating the Lyme disease the past 4 years has been absolutely a living hell, the worst part was when I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I had all these doctors telling me that it was caused by anxiety, when in fact the anxiety was just a symptom of brain inflammation, which was being caused by the Lyme disease. But when I found out what I had, and I finally got a positive test to explain what the hell was wrong with me, that was 50% of the battle. I thought that I was going to be cured within, like a month or a couple months when I first got diagnosed, and that's not the case, because now I've been working on this for 4 years. So a lot of this process is, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's like you're walking up a huge mountain, and every couple steps somebody pushes you back down a little bit. Avril Lavigne just came out with a new song, and it's about her having Lyme's disease, and her song is about sort of like a metaphor of having Lyme and being like stuck underwater and trying to get her head above water. When people ask me, like when I was at my sickest, what it was like to have Lyme, literally what it felt like was being stuck underwater. Like it felt like instead of seeing everything clearly above the surface, that you were in this like dark, murky slowness, and every single move that your body made or your mind made was like trying to move through this like thick, dark water instead of through light air. And you could see everything like above you, above the surface, like in the light. Like there's all the stuff that's going around in the world around you, but it was like there's this like barrier, and like you can't see it because your head's full of like all this like gunk, and it's just like you're in this completely different reality where you feel like you're like low down and everything's dark and slow. So I thought that was really weird that somebody explained kind of this same subjective experience that I had with it. It's not just a clever metaphor. It's actually what it feels like. So there's tons of different environmental toxins. There's pesticides. There's, all the like xenoestrogens, BPA, phthalates, things you find in plastic. And then there are heavy metals, which a lot of these are all neurotoxins. So two of the worst heavy metals you can get are mercury and lead. It can cause a lot of the same symptoms that you would see in Lyme's disease. They can cause Alzheimer's, they can cause autoimmune things like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, MS. Now both lead and mercury are also endocrine disruptors because they're xenoestrogens, meaning they act as an estrogen in your body, but they are not, natural estrogens. They shouldn't be there. And then so this creates an extreme toxicity for your body, specifically in your nervous system. I got tested for heavy metals this year, and my lead and mercury were off the charts. And so I have my test here. The reference interval for how much lead you should have in your body is 2. My level was 21 out of 2. The reference level for how much mercury you should have in your body is 4. My level was 89 out of 4. I have to do these multiple times a week, just putting the needle together. Glutathione is known as the body's master antioxidant, and the human body produces it by itself through the liver. It is essential in detoxing the human body. When you are very sick and you have a lot of toxins in your body, a lot of endotoxins that are produced from the various diseases, bacterial, fungal, viral, your glutathione gets used up over time and your body doesn't make enough to detox all the toxins that need to come out of your body. That can also happen if you have like environmental toxicity from heavy metals or pesticides, other endocrine disruptors. So these were not exactly the kind of shots that I was expecting to be doing in my 20s, but the glutathione makes me feel much better. So it's an intramuscular injection. I have to go in through my thigh, make sure I don't hit somewhere I've injected before, recently. Definitely don't enjoy doing this, and sometimes it hurts a lot. welcome to my IV drip. I get to do this for about 4 hours every single day for a year. And if you want to see how it's connected in through my arm right here. And right now I'm doing zithromycin, which is one of the best antibiotics that I've found so far. The Rife machine kills disease by matching the frequency of the disease. So it's the same premise as when an opera singer hits a certain pitch and matches the same exact frequency as a glass, and then the glass will shatter because the frequencies will meet. A lot of people with Lyme have had really good results with the Rife machine, and the great thing about sound frequency is that whereas pathogens are able to evade antibiotics by hiding in your cells or hiding deep inside your nervous system or other tissues, they can't really evade frequencies or sound waves. I also became interested in something called the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet was originally used in medicine to prevent people from having seizures. Typically with our standard American diet, our bodies run on sugar. All of these diseases, whether they be fungal like candida or bacterial like borrelia, parasitic like babesia or malaria, all of these diseases consume and run off of sugar. And the more sugar you eat and the higher your blood sugar, the more those diseases are going to replicate and reproduce. So our bodies, however, do not need to run on sugar, and in fact they were not really made to run on sugar. For thousands and thousands of years, humans have consumed diets that are high in fat, protein, and low in carbs and sugar. Our bodies would go into something called ketosis. And when you go into ketosis, your cells start using fat as their main energy source by converting the fat into something called ketones instead of using glucose and sugar as their main energy source. So when you go into a state of ketosis, you can achieve this either by fasting or a very low carb diet. So that meant that I was only eating vegetables and meat and healthy fats, and that was it. I was in ketosis from October 2017 until January 2018. And essentially I experienced a massive Herxheimer reaction from the ketosis because all of these microbes in my body started to die off at a very, very fast rate. So because I was doing the ketogenic diet along with the biomat, the Rife machine, hot yoga, and a bunch of antimicrobial supplements that were also killing off all these diseases, my body started to experience a Herxheimer reaction that was too big for it to handle. And when you experience a Herxheimer reaction or die-off of all these diseases that is too quick for your organs to be able to process out the toxins that are being created from the killing of these diseases, your body can go into sepsis. So that's why I ended up in the ICU in January of 2018. At the same time, I was also drinking reverse osmosis water, which is almost completely devoid of electrolytes and highly acidic. And your body absolutely needs electrolytes for basically every function in the human body, and especially detoxing. So essentially what saved me in the emergency room and the ICU was just constant IV saline fluid. In addition to that, I had to get out of the ketosis because the ketosis was so strong at that point. I had been in it for 4 months that it was absolutely killing this stuff far faster than my body could process it out. So in the emergency room, the people at the emergency room didn't really understand what ketosis was, and so of course, you know, they were telling me to start eating muffins and carbs and cookies and sugar like immediately in like huge amounts, and that wasn't good either, because you can't just come out of ketosis, especially when you've been in it that long, that rapidly, because your body is not your insulin levels are low, and in order for your body to be able to process sugar, you need insulin for that. So that wasn't really good either, but the point was that the ketosis was so strong after 4 months that even though I was eating massive amounts of sugar and carbs for about 2 weeks, I was still experiencing a massive die-off, and it was so hard to stop this ketosis. But the die-off kept happening and happening and happening, and finally I got out of it, and I got out of, you know, my body becoming septic. But that's kind of what inspired me, actually, which sounds crazy even though it ended up in me being in the ICU, to look into fasting. Because I thought it was fascinating that if ketosis, which was just limiting your carb and your sugar consumption, was that strong and could kill off all these diseases that quickly, how strong would the die-off be during fasting? So something I didn't understand about fasting, though, was how does the body not go into sepsis during a fasting state if all of these diseases are being killed off, presumably faster than even when one is just in ketosis? So that brought me to something called autophagy. And what autophagy is that when your body goes into a fasting state, your body begins looking for anything within itself that it can consume and use as fuel. And so not only is it consuming excess fat at an extremely high rate, and your sugar stores are depleted within 24 hours of fasting, but then it starts going around and looking in your body for viruses, bacteria, funguses, parasites, and it begins to actually consume those as a source of energy. And so I believe that's why, because your body's actually using those as a form of energy and essentially eating them instead of just killing them and having them release their toxins, that's how your body doesn't go into sepsis. Autophagy doesn't just involve consumption of all these diseases in your body, but it also involves the consumption of compromised cells in your body. Human growth hormone levels skyrocket during a period of fasting and ketosis, so that you're getting rid of all these old, cells that are sick and toxic and don't work, and replacing them with completely new healthy cells. Or your body's cleaning out certain parts of those cells that are unhealthy. It's also burning through fat at an extremely rapid rate. So as it burns through this fat, toxins that have been stored up over a very long period of time, those get released and flushed out of your system. After my great success with the ketogenic diet, and becoming interested in fasting, I attempted a long-term fast. And my goal was at least 40 days. And I started this in April of 2018 and finished it towards the end of May in 2018. The die-off that I experienced was absolutely incredible. My chronic staph infection was gone within 2 weeks. I ended up making it actually to only 39 days. I tried to consume water with lemon in it on the 39th day for electrolytes, and with my system being completely unbuffered by anything else but water, the citric acid was too much and I threw up. So I decided that it would be good to stop the fast at that point. So the fast didn't really get scary, I would say, until somewhere around day 30. Up until day 30, I consumed just mineral water to make sure that I had electrolytes and, minerals. Then I actually had to start adding electrolytes to my water. But it's really hard to be able to test your electrolytes at home. In fact, you can't, so you kind of just have to figure out what the correct balance is. And at one point, it actually became too alkaline as opposed to too acidic. So I had to stop taking the electrolytes. Things really went downhill around day 30 and I had no idea what my electrolyte levels were. I was getting completely sapped of these vitamins because all these vitamins are utilized in detox reactions, and so essentially fasting becomes more dangerous the more toxic your body is. So if I had tried fasting for 40 days earlier in my Lyme treatment, I definitely don't think I would have been able to probably fast for more than 5 days without it being extremely dangerous. I began consuming bone broth on day 36 because I was having very scary symptoms like constant vertigo and double vision because of vitamin deficiencies. But at that point I was very worried that it was electrolyte deficiencies. So the main things that worried me during this fast were my electrolyte levels, because I couldn't test them. I couldn't go to the hospital. If you go to the hospital and you say you haven't eaten in 40 days, they're going to put you in a psych ward. They don't care if that's, a form of medical treatment. Because technically, it's not in this country. So couldn't go to the emergency room and have my electrolyte levels tested. I did end up buying a device to take my vital signs each day to make sure that my blood pressure was okay, and my heart rate was okay, and my temperature was okay. And because they all seemed to be all right, I continued going with the fast until day 39. And then, of course, my vitamin levels also were worrying me, and that's not something that I could test at home either. And I did have contact with my doctor, but the contact was very intermittent. After I did the 40-day fast this summer, it took me only about 2 weeks to recover, and within 3 weeks I was completely back at work, and I felt way better than I did before the fast. And I would say that this summer, after the 40-day fast, I felt 90% better from Lyme. The results that I saw from this confirmed that I really believe that fasting is the simplest way, and possibly even the safest way for the body to be able to heal itself, and certainly the most natural way. But that being said, I would really like to do my next fast, which may be the fast to finally get me to 100% symptom-free from Lyme's disease, 100% better, 100% to the point where my immune system is good enough to be able to handle whatever else is still alive in my body. But I wanted to do it, I would like to do it in a supervised setting where, I have people who are supervising this that can take my vital signs, test my blood if I need that tested, test my electrolytes if that's necessary, and also just be in a really positive environment with other people who are fasting as well, because fasting's not just biological, it's also like a spiritual thing, and it's about cleansing negative energy out of your body, not just in the physical form, and kind of letting in new high vibrational positive energy. So this is the most successful test that I've ever gotten that I'm holding here, because throughout my Lyme treatment, some days I'll test positive for certain diseases on blood work, some days I'll test negative, and this happens because a lot of the diseases are hiding deep within your tissues, deep within your cells, deep within your nervous system, in these cystic colonies. So what's interesting about the fasting is all of this stuff started dying and being pulled out of its cystic form, being pulled out from the intracellular compartments within my cells, being pulled out for the immune system to kill it, for my body to consume it, for my body to flush it. And so when I was on the fast, I finally got one test where I tested positive for almost all of the diseases that I have in one shot. So these are some of my tests here. And you can see I have the Epstein-Barr positive, HHV6 positive, Lyme's disease positive, which is the Borrelia, Mycoplasma positive, Bartonella positive with a 2.97 out of 0.13, and that one's really high, which is scary because that causes a lot of this neurological and psychiatric problems, and Babesia positive with a 1.35. So what I have here is a symptom checklist for Lyme. by Joseph Burrascano, who was one of the first scientists and doctors to study Lyme in the 1970s. He created this checklist of symptoms that helps you assess, if you have Lyme's disease, and if you know you have Lyme's disease, how bad you have it, and then you can take the survey multiple times and see how your progress is. I did a survey today, October 11th, 2018, and then I did one thinking back to when my symptoms were at their worst from 2009 to 2017. You have to rate your symptoms mild, moderate, or severe. From 2009 to 2017, I had about 34 severe symptoms. Now that number is only 9. And then you also have to rate whether your symptoms are occasional, often, or constant. And at this point, when my Lyme was the worst, I had 19 constant symptoms. Now I only have 1. The severe symptoms that I used to experience were fevers, sore feet, excruciating pain in my knees, unexplained back pain, stiffness of my joints and back, excruciating muscle pains, muscle weakness, and all of these I marked as I would have those often. These symptoms were severe and constant. I had severe and constant confusion and difficulty thinking, severe and constant difficulty with concentration, reading, problem absorbing new information, constant and severe not being able to find the right word that I wanted to say, constant and severe forgetfulness, memory loss, poor attention, disorientation, going to wrong places, speech errors, saying the wrong words or garbling my speech, severe and constant mood swings, irritability, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, psychosis, hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, bipolar, severe and constant floaters in front of my eyes, like little dots. I would have severe ringing or decreased hearing loss in my ears often, and often I would have severe vertigo, feeling off balance, lightheadedness, neuropathy in which I couldn't feel my feet or my hands, or they were, tingling or burning. I had severe and constant fatigue, severe and constant insomnia, severe and constant excessive nighttime sleep where I would sleep till 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon, severe and constant unexplained weight gain, unexplained hair loss, unexplained lack of sex drive, unexplained severe period pain where I would be hysterically crying for hours because I was in so much pain. I would often have a heart arrhythmia, and I got this thing from the Babesia where I had a lack of oxygen because the Babesia were actually consuming my oxygen, and I felt this air hunger, shortness of breath where I couldn't breathe. So all of those symptoms were really bad. It really sucked living with those symptoms to that level of severity for that long. Because like I said, I've had Lyme now for 21 years. And there was a period of at least 10 years where it was really, 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 really bad. And all of these symptoms were basically constant. I think the one that they left off the list was brain fog. And that was my worst symptom, which just felt like what it was, which was the early stages of dementia. So now my severe symptoms are occasionally I'll get severe pain in my knees. Occasionally I'll have severe muscle pain or cramping. Occasionally I'll have confusion and difficulty thinking. Occasionally I'll have difficulty with reading or absorbing new information. Or often I still get forgetfulness, ADD symptoms, short-term memory problems. I still often get moderate mood swings, irritability, and depression. I get occasional anxiety and panic attacks. I get occasional psychosis. I often have the eye floaters now, but they're not severe and constant anymore. I often still have a ringing in my ears or a decreased hearing loss, but it's more mild. I have moderate fatigue, but it's often as opposed to constant. And really the one symptom that has stayed the worst is just like excessive peeing. So overactive bladder. I occasionally get severe shortness of breath. I occasionally get severe night sweats, and those are both symptoms that are from the babesia. But all in all, I feel a lot better because of everything I've done, and I've gone from 34 severe symptoms to 9, and 19 constant symptoms to 1. And so I am really excited to be at 0 for severe symptoms and 0 for constant symptoms. And I feel like I am so close to the end. And I think I might be 40 to 60 day fast away. And that's why I'm asking for your help. Help me be able to afford this next fast, so that I can finally be 100% symptom free after 21 years of Lyme's disease. I also want this video to not just be, a campaign for my medical treatment, but I want this to be a video that people share in order to spread awareness about Lyme's disease. There's other options for healing out there that might be able to take them to 100% full recovery, whereas other more traditional Western treatments might not. And even possibly more, but not just about Lyme's disease, but about all these chronic diseases, and the fact that these are all treatable. There's always something causing the symptoms. You're not just born with it. And I really believe that there is a way to always get better.